Well, good morning and good afternoon if you're in India. My name is Tom Jenkins. I work at ETOA, and it's my great privilege to help chair this discussion we're having on India as an origin market. I'm going to wait a couple of moments for the attendees to spool in. I expect it takes about 10 or 20 seconds for everything to load up. So if you give me a few moments, we'll start. Okay, good morning, good afternoon again. We are awaiting one other panelist who's a panelist, and she's, I believe, going to be joining us momentarily. But while we await it, it'd be great if the two panelists I've got could introduce themselves. And if I may, I'll start with Sheetal. Sheetal, do you want to say hello and explain who you work for and what you do?
Sure. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sheetal, and I work with Happy Tours. We are BMC for UK, Europe, and Scandinavia. We are based in London. Like my head office is in London, where the CEO of the company sits in London. We have a small team in London. We also have the big office in Slovenia, in Ljubljana, and we have two more offices in Croatia and Greece. I take care of India market entirely, along with Bangladesh and Nepal. So I take care of the entire sales and marketing for India for Happy Tours.
Thank you. And Vishal.
Hi, morning, Tom. Thank you. Morning, everyone. I'm Vishal Bhatia, Country Manager for Visit Britain in India, based out of the Mumbai office. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, I think we're here to discuss really India as an origin market for Europe, and I'm absolutely delighted that I've got two experts here to help us do so. I think it's probably worthwhile my while just starting off by pointing out that India has become the growth market for Europe. Certainly, it has recovered from the problems we had in 2020, 21, 22, and 23 faster than almost any other market in Asia. And the fact is that of all the Asian markets, with the possible exception of places such as Singapore, India has cultural ties with Europe, unlike any of the other Asian markets, and in many ways gets it, if that makes sense. And so the Indian market poses real opportunities for suppliers and tour operators, but also some real challenges, and I hope we can explore those today. If I may, can I just start off by saying, what do you think Europe is going to be looking like as a destination? And I appreciate, Vishal, you're very much looking at the UK, but we can extrapolate out from that. What do you think what's it looking like in 2024 and 25? Can I start with Sheetal, please?
Hi. So basically, Europe has always been fascinating for Indian clients, and as you correctly said, India was one of the first countries to start, entering in Europe after the pandemic was over. So basically, Europe is definitely one market where Indian would love to travel. Definitely 2024, we are looking forward to have more people coming to Europe. But there are a lot of hindrances which I must be very clear about, which we have faced since 2022, which is still not yet recovered. Last minute, this is a very last minute market. But the most important thing is that for us to send, or the Indians to come to Europe with large number, we need a lot of support from tourism board, and especially from for the visa perspective. I think visa have been really, really difficult for Indians, and there are a lot of last minute issues because of that. As it is, the market is very last minute, and when the visa cancellation, visa rejections comes as a surprise to the client, they are already under 100% cancellation, and we have been facing a lot with that since 2022. I could understand 2022. The consulates were still recovering in a recurring mode, but it's still not sorted fully. And only few consulates are there which are really supporting, like UK is probably one, and probably Switzerland is one. But yes, this is one biggest hindrance is what we see when we want to send more people to Europe. But yes, as far as potential is concerned, a lot of people wants to come, but there are a lot of hindrances which we all are facing.
No, I mean, do you think that what you're saying is that the growth that we've seen in 23 is going to continue in 24 and carry on to 25? There's real demand, is what you're saying.
I would say that a bit because just now we had a group in Portugal, and my client was chasing the consulate for over 2 months, and they didn't get the reward even to apply for the visa. So they had to change the itinerary and get the people. I mean, the Switzerland was part of the itinerary, but they had to increase the number of nights in Switzerland and get their clients to Switzerland. So it was a very difficult time for them. It was 80 people, and finally only 40 people travel due to this visa hindrance. So we would love to see more consulate coming up and getting more staff to cope up with the demand in Indian market, but unfortunately as of now it doesn't look like that.
Okay, Aparna, you're saying that there's real restrictions on visas, both in Europe and the UK, but you were implying, and we'll come back to Vishal on this in a second, but you're implying that the UK and Switzerland seem to be among the better processes of visas. It's very rare that we hear good news about the UK, so that's excellent. That's very heartening. Aparna, thank you so much for joining us, and you have a very tourism-appropriate background there, so I salute that. Do you want to start just by just explaining who you are and what Europamundo does, and then was just asking Sheetal what the prospects for 24 and 25 are for Europe and the Indian market.
Hi, first and foremost, thank you for having me here. And I'm Aparna Chaturvedi. I look after Europamundo's commercial activities in the UAE, India, and South Africa. And for us, it's been an interesting journey because year on year, we've been seeing 100% growth in the last 2 years, which post-COVID has been very encouraging. In fact, I was with Vishal just a few days back, and we spoke about how the British visas have been such an amazing turnaround from what we had last year. So that's been like amazing. And Europamundo is a Spanish coach tour operator, and we do guaranteed seat and coach tours through Europe, UK. We have some in the US and Mexico as well, but my prime focus here is Europe. And I must say it's been very encouraging because the Spanish embassy in Delhi is another turnaround story. I mean, it's such a pleasure to see passports coming back in 4 days. And they are open to longer durations when they see well-traveled passports. And they are realizing the fact that the Indian who can afford to travel doesn't need to be scrutinized every 3 months to be given a 3-month visa. They can be given slightly longer term visa. And that, I think, if more and more embassies in Europe realize that, look, you can give slightly longer term visa, would be less hassles for the agents, for the clients, the embassies, everybody. Like the US visa or UK long term, I think it takes a lot of stress away from everybody.
Well, as I was saying earlier, it's rare that we hear good news about visas. I think within the general context, and we'll get onto that in a minute, of visas, it's still quite an arduous process for anybody applying for a visa. I think the good news is that once having gone through that arduous process, in general terms, the wait that you have to endure to then finally receive the thing is going down. Vishal, what's your perspective on the prospects for 24 and 25?
So I think if I just take a step back to when we were looking at time pre-COVID, when you had people, tour operators in India, I think, and Sheetal might be someone who's probably serviced a lot of this with the bigger tour operators, is multi-country itineraries. I think we're seeing that demand go down now. People are starting to do 1 and 2 country itineraries, but doing it for longer. And I think it speaks in terms of the fact that people are spending more nights in a particular destination, but be it, in mainland Europe or the UK. I think you're starting to see 1 or 2 countries, probably pushing it, going to 3 countries in a 2-week holiday. So yeah, there is a demand for those 5 or 6 country itineraries that happened from India at one point going down. It's not that it's gone, but it's still there, but it's reducing a lot more. People are looking at more of the experiences. For example, from travel to the UK itself, Indian visitors spent 764 million pounds in 2022, which is the record. And I think it's to do with the fact that people are spending more nights and spending more time in the country. The average stay for an Indian visitor is now 27 days in Britain. So I think that's one of the things to bear in mind. I think, even we were talking a bit about the visas over here, but the year ending September 2023, there were over 500,000 visit visas issued to Indian nationals. So it kind of speaking about the volumes and the demands that coming in. I think we're already seeing a bit of an uptake on visa applications coming in from what I hear from George and his team. And we're expecting again 10 to 15,000 visa applications a week coming into the peak summer rush, which we know happens generally in April. So, come in another couple of weeks, we will see a big uptake over there. I think there's a big chunk of airline capacity that's come in, which we've seen as well. So again, December 23 figures show we were 65% up on, non-stop direct routes between both countries as compared to December 2019. And that's huge. You're talking about 1.9 million non-stop direct seats alone between both countries. So add in the Gulf carriers, you add in European carriers, and you've got a lot of capacity. And it could also be, again, traffic going in via the UK into mainland Europe or coming in from mainland to the UK, either way. So the capacity is there. We know airlines are still looking at getting in more flights. I was recently in Bangalore, Virgin starting their flight from Bangalore into London on the 31st of March is the first flight London to Bangalore, and then 1st of April is Bangalore London. Air India is trying to get a flight in as well. I think they're having a difficulty with aircrafts and getting slots into airports, but the demand's there. So they are, as a commercial organization, I think when an airline is looking at the fact that there is demand, it's only then that they're going to actually put in a flight. So I think they also are able to look at their kind of research, and the data that they've got is telling them there is an opportunity over here. So I think overall, you are, in a nutshell, what we are seeing is Indian travelers now doing more experiences, spending more nights, and doing one or two countries on their trips uh, going forward.
I know this is what a lot of people are calling for, and it goes slightly against the grain of what we, as an association standpoint, so far as we're here for people selling Europe as a destination. That doesn't stop them selling individual countries, I hasten to add, but principally we're people who cover more than one country. But I mean, are you seeing this, Aparna, that people are moving away from pure bucket list itineraries towards, for want of a better word, experiential vacations? Is this something you're seeing?
See, I agree with Vishal there that people are looking at doing 1 and 2 countries, maybe 3 at best, and a 2-week duration is what they would look at. And for a coach company like us, where people are looking at making the travel as simple as possible, that's where we come in. And we found pre and post people add on 2 or 3 nights to put in those experiences. Like a Europa Mundo typically wouldn't do a Euro Disney, or we wouldn't take them to a Mount Jungfrau. But when people do their extension night, they do all the things that cost a little bit more, and that could be a personal choice. So those extension nights are very popular on our tour, and multi-city, especially when it comes to Scandinavia, a multi-country is still happening because people still begin in Helsinki and finish off in Copenhagen. That's still happening.
Old habits die hard. Is this your experience, Sheetal?
Yes, I think the market is moving from a highly seasoned market, which was, used to be from till September, let's say from April. Now it's moving to all year round market. And I think all thanks to the MICE industry, which is booming in India. We are doing some really interesting projects coming up in this summer, which Vishal is aware of, that we are doing around 500 people in London together. And people are traveling not only during the summer. We recently did, in the month of February, we did 300 people in Switzerland. So people are more open to travel year around. So that's one good thing what I feel. A second thing, I think guests are also maturing. Many, mostly, they are non-first time. So whenever they are traveling to Europe the next time, as Vishal and Aparna correctly said, they want to explore more in depth. So they generally try to extend their stay and they want to cover more, experiential itineraries. Also, I have seen that people are, whoever have covered the West Europe, they are moving from West Europe to the Eastern Europe and other regions of Europe, including Scandinavia, which is an important thing for Indians right now. Especially it starts from November onwards and it's still on for the Aurora and everything till March. I also feel most of the people who are very educated and their language is not a big barrier for them. They can speak English and they can curate their itinerary very well. They are getting into FITs. So there are a lot of FITs and van tours which are, picking up as well. So I think that, you can see, and the most mutual traveler, they are trying to, do a short trips to Europe, but they are mainly into experiential, where they are starting with the food part, which is a different European local food they want to taste. But when you come to talk about the MICE part, which is a huge part which we handle, they are still very Indian food focused, where they want their proper Indian breakfast items and, getting their chefs to do a lovely food spread for them. So this is where, we feel that Indian are very particular when it's a group travel.
I think you're singing very nicely into the next thing on my agenda, which is, has the requirements for the Indian market changed? I mean, you're implying that their requirement for very specific types of food is evolving. We used to worry a lot about, for instance, I mean, I appreciate this is a niche area of the market, but a Jain group which would have to travel with its own chef, and this creates all kinds of immigration problems to start with. But is it likely that you're saying people will want to sample more regional food in the UK? Are they going to? Are there any specific dietary requirements, I suppose, is the question I've got to you.
Tom, the thing is that I have been working with the Indian market for over 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And 20 years back, yes, there was a problem with the Jain food. But now you talk about any place in Europe, including place like Tallinn, which is small, they all serve Jain food. They don't take Indian chef with them. It's illegal in many parts of Europe. So we don't do at all the Indian chefs coming there unless they have a work permit to cook. But Indian food is very, very particular. Reason behind that, most of the people in India are Hindus, okay? They don't eat beef and pork. Beef for religious reason, pork because they don't get good quality pork here. So when they go abroad, so basically Indian food is more of a vegetarian variety. So people here in India, they get a lot of option when it's a veg. But in Europe, the limitations are there with the food, So the groups we have been doing over so many years, so for breakfast items, they always go for 2 Indian vegetarian breakfast items. That's a mandate now with, I would say, 80% of my MICE group, which most of the hotels are aware of. And whenever the hotel doesn't have an Indian chef who can prepare authentic food, then I have to ask one of the local caterer who have been working with us for a longer time. They prepare in the morning this breakfast item and they deliver in the hotel. So I met a Marriott River Gauche person just last week, and the best part is that this hotel is just refurbished. It's a newly built hotel now, and they're opening in July this year. And to my surprise, they have added a live counter for an Indian dosa, which is a breakfast item, in the hotel as a part of their breakfast, place. So it's something really, which I think that keen, interest of serving the Indian client and the expectation can be seen from the hotel, because before they went for the refurbishment, they were getting the maximum number of Indians there staying in that hotel. So I think this particular positive approach, we can see it from most of the hotels, which is really encouraging for us to send maximum group to that hotels. Yeah.
Aparna, is this something you agree with? I mean, in broad terms, I suppose to summarize what Sheetal is saying is that the food provision is an issue, but it's less of a problem than it used to be.
We started with Europamundo. The first thing we ran to Europamundo is saying, oh, the Indian groups need Indian meals. The Indian groups need Indian meals. So we had 7 itineraries which would have Indian meals on them. And very soon we realized that it was the other communities that were on the coaches wanted to try the Indian food and not the Indians because they were busy exploring what options they have. So now we've realized that while there is a section of people who do want to stick to the Indian meals, there are majority who want to go and sample the local fare. So we've taken the dinner options out of our coaches and we give people free time. And we've started introducing very nice restaurants. Vegan and vegetarian is an option very easily available in Europe. And the Indian palate is not necessarily looking at Indian food, but possibly a vegetarian and vegan palate or the international. The Indian traveler is now ready for the world as it is being offered.
Well, it's a very heartening thought. And it's true in reverse, because you will find that hotels in India who used to specialize in providing Western food for Western clients, and they're now finding that Western clients have come to India to eat the Indian food. So this is part of the travel experience. Vishal, is this something you're seeing in the UK?
Absolutely. I think I'd echo what Sheetal and Aparna both have said. I think it's again, when you look at your FIT, family, traveler, or a repeat visitor, chances are they're going to go out and eat the fish and chips and the local food, go look at, Michelin star restaurants or local pubs and stuff like that. Probably a group departure, tier two, tier three, first time visitor wants the comfort of knowing there's Indian food available, but is happy to try local stuff. So it's again, sometimes you don't understand what food is when you're traveling, and this could be anywhere in the world. Or sometimes I think even in India, when we travel around, I don't know whether this is meat or not. And as a I don't eat meat. So I'm sometimes just, wary about saying I'd probably just avoid it. I can't figure out, I don't understand what this is. So I think you're seeing that happen. And, a lot of advice we give travel agents also is to say, tell your clients, just ask for vegan food. They get the concept of vegan more than they get vegetarian.
Mhm.
It's just easier, you're safer, no one's going to get hurt here. So, you'll get the options. And I think it's a lot of vegan restaurants that you see on menus in most restaurants today.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's an issue anymore.
I
In fact,
the,
even with group departures, something we are seeing, and Sheetal, I don't know if you're seeing this when you're booking for these tour operators. When you did group tour operators and they took their chefs along, I think what they're now doing is saying, I'll give you one Indian vegetarian or Indian meal at a restaurant, and the other one is kind of go explore. So it's not lunch, dinner, breakfast. Everything is going to be Indian, Indian, Indian.
Is there any curiosity? Sorry, this I just Sheetal, I'll let you answer in a second. I've just got one question on this. I'm intrigued, Vishal. There is a in the UK, we have evolved an Indian cuisine which is very different from Indian cuisine, if that makes sense. The Indian food provided in the UK bears a similarity and is obviously linked to the subcontinent, but it seems to be very different. Is this something that you're finding that Indians are going to England and finding what they're being provided with in Indian restaurants is not what they're used to?
It is, but I think that's part of the travel experience,
Yeah.
right? To say this has become like this over here, but they also get the fact that you're not going to get the level of spice, or you're not getting the kind of masalas we use here. Because I know sometimes, you walk into a restaurant and you say, I want the proper spices, and they chop up a chili and put it in. That's not what they're asking for.
No, no.
So we've seen that. I think they get the fact that, the palate is very different in Europe, UK, of course, Europe also. So that's part of the whole travel experience. I think that people are happy to go try. To say, I
Yeah,
want to try the chicken tikka masala over here because I know it's not what I'm going to get in Delhi.
exactly. Sorry, Sheetal, I interrupted.
No, no problem. So I just wanted to add something in this because the kind of profile we're handling for the mice. So clients are quite demanding when the groups are really big. So recently, 2 years back, we were pitching for a group for Ultratech where we had, like very specific requirements. So Tom, when you're talking about food in UK, I used to live in UK, so I know for the fact the food in UK and India is totally different. The basic reason behind that, the food what you get to eat in Europe is most of the time it's North Indian or a South Indian, which are specialist restaurant. But in India, every 200 kilometers, the dialects change, the food change, there is a lot of culinary history, in India. So that's where, when Vishal was talking about tier 2 or tier 3 city people coming, okay, due to the fact that they are very particular on the vegetarian. Vegan, yes, vegan is generally even a fish or an egg can be considered as a vegan, but Indian people, we don't eat fish and egg in a vegetarian. So it's a bit tricky, but I think most of the Indian restaurants, they are aware that what exactly veg means. And most of the time we try and ask them to incorporate like local dishes, like let's say fish and chips, or let's say some shepherd's pie or something more Indian Chinese food in the buffet. So, it's not very typical Indian, but it's like something with different palate also get, they can experience. Yeah.
I think what we're trying to say is that referring to Indian food is as meaningful as referring to European food, insofar as there is a huge variety there, and sophistication, which is probably not appreciated elsewhere. Aparna, have you got an angle on this? Is this something that you're experiencing, or?
People said something very sweet, Indian Chinese. I know a lot of European friends who come and say, we need to have the Indian Chinese. So that's the variety on the Indian palate right now. We've got Chinese food made Indian style.
Yeah.
And most of our Indian restaurants are serving vegetarian Chinese food for the Indian palate, because the real Indian traveler is not really looking at only Indian food. He's happy doing as long as he's assured it's vegetarian. So as long as people are able to educate them, look, you've got something for the vegetarian. The flamenco shows in Spain, when we used to go in the early days, the only thing they would offer would be some grilled vegetables and some chopped cheese. That was all there was for a vegetarian. Now they've got quite a palette laid out for a vegetarian option. You could go for a vegetable cutlet or a baked vegetables or grilled vegetables. There's a lot more. And people, in fact, love to have a local fanfare, which is essentially vegetarian.
Okay, now I would like to stress to those of you watching that there is a question and answer facility on the webinar here, and two people have very kindly offered questions, which we'll get to in a minute. But please use that if you wish to raise any questions for everyone here. Before the event, some people posted some questions in, and I'll just address those now, if I may. Which is, someone very kindly asked, what are people looking for in Europe? They say, particularly in Spain and Portugal. Is it culture, gastronomy, luxury tourism, contact with local customs? I suppose it's a very broad question, but can I just start with you, Aparna? Is there anything in particular you would say that Indian? This is a huge generalization, but you give a stab.
It's generalization, but in Spain, there was one movie that pretty much summed it up. There was a movie called Zindagi Milegi Na Dobara, which was essentially translates into You Only Live Once. And this is featuring pretty much all of Spain. So anybody aspiring to go to Spain from India is looking at flamenco, is looking at skydiving, is looking at beach. Doesn't matter where he's getting it. So broadly, the Indian family is looking at some fun, some shopping, some beach, and that could be a combination. And for some reason, it is Ibiza that's really caught on. And now for cost reasons, Portugal is really caught on. So the 2-week vacation, 2 countries, what we were talking about, would essentially have an arrival into Portugal, do a bit of Portugal, come into Seville, do a bit of beach, come into Barcelona, do some shopping, and finish off with Ibiza. So a little sample of everybody from the family.
I'm stunned at that revelation. Sheetal, is this something you would echo?
Yes, I think as we can't generalize, as Aparna correctly said, but Bollywood have always played a huge influence on Indian, clients. And I think the way Yash Chopra, showed Switzerland all these years through his movies. So most of the people, if you ask them in their bucket list, Swiss is one of the most important destination for them to see, including London is one of the popular one. Then again, Spain and other countries. So I would say, if Bollywood can show the destination very well, people wants to go there and explore and visit those places, So even on mounted list, you have this very famous movie we had, DDLJ, which is Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge. They have a nice poster on top of mounted list, and people do go there and take the picture, along with the poster there, to just show them that they have been there. So I think yes, definitely, this is the thing what they are looking for.
And Vishal, is there any single thing that you would say that people are looking for in the UK?
I don't think there's anything particular in that sense. I think there's, don't forget, we've got a shared history, India and the UK. So there's a sense of familiarity anyway when someone travels over there. The language is similar, food is very similar. Again, chicken tikka masala is your national dish, apparently, or from what I hear. Everyone knows what it is over here. I think, like Sheetal mentioned, a lot of Bollywood movies have been shot. London it started with, so Trafalgar Square, Piccadilly Circus, etc., came onto the maps over here. I think it just reached a point where a country like Spain got those many eyeballs because of a movie, is because that was probably one movie that's been shot in Spain, and everyone took notice. With England, Scotland, Wales, I think you've had so many movies shot over there. I think there was a figure I read somewhere, I don't know how far it's true, but there are about 100 movies from India that get shot in the UK every year. Now, that's huge. The problem is, it just looks so familiar that you're not now suddenly noticing it as much unless it became a super hit and you went out somewhere else. So, I know there are there are a lot of producers, line producers in the UK who are now getting people out of London. So they are going up to the Manchester, Scotland's, the Lake District, I know is something a lot of films have been shooting in recently as well. So, and you're starting to see then consumers go over there. So there is a bit of research that happens. I think, of course, you've got your Game of Thrones, etc., that people are watching on Netflix, and those have got eyeballs because that's, again, they want to go see those houses. They want to see if they can go experience those, you know, various experiences that happen over there in terms of, can I go live in the house? Can I rent out this palace? So you get those questions. I don't think mostly those palaces are for rent, but they want to go visit those places then, and it's more of the British film and TV that people take notice of over here to actually travel to.
I think on shared values and heritage, it's worthwhile mentioning that, of course, that Diwali was celebrated for the first time in 10 Downing Street quite recently. The connection runs deep and broad, I think is the point. Now, outside the UK and outside Spain, Italy, France, Switzerland, are there any areas, and I say outside Scandinavia, which has also been mentioned, are there any areas in Europe that are of particular interest and are seeing surprising growth? Aparna, can I ask you that question? And when I get to Vishal, I'll have to ask you if there are any particular areas of the UK which are seeing some surprising growth. But Aparna, over to you.
Both Italy and Greece are so much in demand, and both these embassies have been really playing difficult with visas. I mean, everybody who's going on a vacation till about May is longing to spend at least a week, 10 days, either in Greece or Italy. And it's amazing how difficult the Italy visa is in India. And the Greece is almost like a roulette machine. It will work, it will not. Last year we had some alarming situations. Hopefully this year it would be a shade better, but people do take it along with Switzerland or France so that they are assured of a visa. But if you're looking at only Greece or Italy as a destination, it's tough, but in big demand.
That's interesting. Sorry, Sheetal, what's your position on this? Is there anywhere in Europe you're seeing surprising levels of demand?
So basically, there are many areas which can be really marketed in Indian market. The only issue, what I feel, is that it's not entirely the destination which should be ready to welcome the clients, but it's also visa, which I'm sorry, I think I'm repeating this second time about the visa. But as Aparna correctly said, that countries like Germany, Italy, and other parts are really difficult to get through the appointment. Though we being a DMC, we don't really do the visa part, but because we deal with all these people very regularly and we handle that kind of volume, last year we had a case where French embassy agreed to do the visa of 270 people. And after getting 10 visas done, they said they're not in a position to do it. And we literally had to cancel the entire group 10 days prior to the arrival and shift it to the this year. We just finished that group last week in Paris. My colleague was there. So coming back from that angle, I think Europe has a lot of potential, which we discussed, but it's also a lot depend on the visa if they can really be prepared themselves to serve it with quick and attention to the fast visa approval and not rejecting, especially when the mice companies are giving their documents and supporting the visa cases. That means the employees are coming back, they are giving the visas, and the company is sponsoring them. So I think this is one factor which needs to be focused, and I think the entire Europe has a potential to get the clients anywhere, with whether it's Prague, Hungary, or Vienna, or anywhere in Europe.
I think we're moving away from where people go to back to the visa and we must discuss the visa situation, because the visa situation is of overwhelming importance when you're trying to move people from India to Europe. But I'm particularly interested. Are you seeing any growth? And I'm looking at the question that was posed to me. Any particular interest in the Balkan area, for example?
We have a good inventory in the Balkans and it's doing well.
Yeah, it's doing well.
I
Okay.
wouldn't say we are on a double-digit growth like Central Europe. There was a bit of a thing, but what volumes we have increased in terms of itinerary in Poland is very interesting. All our Croatia and itineraries in that region have done very well. So I'm not saying those areas are not difficult with visas, but the advantage is those are being combined with a mainland Europe. So maybe with a Switzerland or a France or a thing, then the Schengen visa is done. So it becomes quite good. In fact, Imperial Europe, our Prague, Vienna, Budapest is one of our flagship products. And that does extremely well. And with Air India having flights into Vienna and out from Amsterdam, we have a very successful itinerary which begins in Vienna and finishes in Amsterdam, a very non-traditional Indian tour route, but it's taken very well.
And Vishal, I've been holding back on you, but is there any area in the UK that you're surprised at the growth in?
I'm not surprised particularly, but I think before I do say anything, I must say the UK is the #1 destination in Europe for Indians at the moment. So overall, at least it is back to #1.
You're doing a great job,
I think
Vishal.
I think look, it's credit to the team at UKVI. Honestly, I think it's one of those where we've obviously got some sort of advantage given the fact that there have been challenges with certain countries in the Schengen visa, and people know they're getting the UK visas in 8 to 10 working days at the moment, as opposed to the which is quicker than the standard time that you generally have of 15 working days, and there've been no issues. So I think it's kind of smoothened the whole process out in the back end, which George and his team have done over here, which has kind of helped in terms of making sure people are being able to sell the UK with confidence again. Um, with regards to which destinations, I think in the UK again, London, Scotland has always been popular historically. What we've done since 2019 actually is try to get the north of England on the map. So whether it was a tour with Manchester, Liverpool, and the Lake District from 2019 when the Cricket World Cup happened, we worked closely with Marketing Manchester. Then we got that onto the group tour map, group tour itineraries. With the Commonwealth Games happening a couple of years ago, we managed to do a lot of work around the Birmingham and the West Midlands. So we're starting to see those rewards come in as well. So what's effectively happening is I think people are adding that one additional night, which I was talking about earlier in terms of how people are traveling and spending more time in a particular country. Is you're starting to see those couple of additional nights in the north of England. You're seeing those, 1 or 2 nights in Birmingham and the West Midlands as well. Apart from doing the London and Scotland, which has traditionally been a strong market for the group departures anyway. I think there's one tour operator that's recently or is about to launch an itinerary starting in Scotland, ending in London now. So we're starting to see those open jaw itineraries as well, which is, I think, great because people can then add on the pre or post tours that they might want to do, like they would do with a Europa Mundo, for example.
In fact,
You're on mute.
Tom, with your permission, I'd just like to add, Ireland is one country that's really benefited with the UK visa being available, and they can travel to Ireland. And all the Europamundo itineraries, once we do the England-Scotland extensions to Ireland, are available. So that 2-week holiday that somebody is looking at, UK-Ireland combination, which again finishes in London, is a perfect example of not having to do another visa and yet do a lovely 2-week program.
What a great point. I think if I can just close on visa discussion, I think what's interesting from what I'm hearing from you, and it'd be interesting almost to hear a yes or no, is it sounds as though there's very clearly destination shopping on the basis of visa processing. You're choosing to go to somewhere because the visa is the easier to obtain, and that the UK, despite having the most expensive visa with the longest visa application form, and the one that offers you the fewest countries if you want to buy it, because it is being efficiently processed, it means that the UK is getting a competitive advantage. This is a generalization. The question I've got for you is, what would you think would happen to demand if they switched away from requiring a visa onto a visa waiver system? If there was no visa, I suppose. Sheetal, what would you say demand would be like if we did that? How much would it go up by?
Okay, so I mean, Tom, sorry, before that, I wanted to talk to you 2 minutes about Balkan part, because we are one of the Balkan operators, and I think, we really have a good team and we do a lot of Balkan there. So sorry, if I want to just go back for 1 minute and explain.
Sheetal, I was trying to lob you that ball, so by all means take it. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
So the challenges what we faced in Balkan is, it's not merely giving the clients to the Balkan area. I think the understanding of the profile of the client you are serving is very important. So for example, when we are based here, we understand whom are we serving, what are their requirements with food, regards to food, their expectation and everything. But with Balkan, we are facing some issues from the service side. The service standards are really still needs to be improved, because if you come to India and experience the service, people do expect the same standard and quality of service when they go to Balkan. So I think, giving them that clarity, or let's say training to understand the mindset and deliverance of the service to the Indian, mice or a client, it will help Balkan to raise that kind of numbers in Balkan area. So that's important for us to, inform, because hotels last year we faced a lot of issues in Balkan where people were not able to understand how the service needs to be done. People were really very newly trained people were there. They were not understanding the service standards and things like that. So last year we faced pretty much issues in the standard of service. So that was the one part which I really wanted to very keen on talking about. Coming back to your current question about what if there is no visa. So I think there are many countries which are opening an arm, and they are giving that, probably a chance for people to come and be a part of, on arrival visa. So Belgrade was one of the country which allowed. Serbia was one who was giving on arrival visa for Indians, and there were a lot of people who traveled during the pandemic to Belgrade because that was in a green zone. So coming back to that, it will really help us to send many people to Europe. Especially, I'm not talking about FIT right now because volume-wise, MICE and Ledger is more. When their documentation is so strong here, okay, and probably it can be, the procedure can be smoothened. I think there is a lot of potential for people to, come and be in Europe for that particular time and come back to India. So I think that will really help to promote Europe as a destination for clients, for sure.
Okay. Aparna, I mean, this is, I suppose it's a fantasy, but it helps us when we sit there saying that the visas do actually represent a material barrier. I mean, you will be amazed at the extent to which the officials overseeing border arrangements in Europe simply don't believe that visas represent a barrier. And I'm just wondering if there were effectively no visa requirement, what would that do to demand? Aparna, what's your perception of it?
Okay.
It's a double-edged sword. We do have security issues. We do need to filter out people that we don't want crossing borders and all over the place. So you do need borders, but there has to be a more intelligent system of sieving out what you want. And possibly, I'm not saying necessarily it's economic, but at least you have the credentials in place and an e-visa in process. Smoothen the process, who's coming, who's going, but don't make it a hindrance that you're waiting 3 weeks for an appointment and 4 weeks for a visa. No, simplify it the way we've got with some of the embassies right now. And I think we can definitely grow the business there.
Vishal, I mean, this may be too political for you, but I mean, do you think it would be, it would obviously be useful, but would it be dramatic if, say, the UK were able to offer a visa waiver for anyone holding a Schengen visa, for example?
Well, I'm not sure I could answer that, Tom,
No.
but I do think if you did have no visa requirements for any country, probably in Europe or anywhere in the world for that matter, really, where there was really zero requirements and there was a demand for that, for travel to that country, I think in addition to what Aparna was talking about in terms of securing your borders, which is obviously the biggest priority for any, border agency, I think you're firstly looking at sustainability being thrown out of the door to start with, because you'd need those many flights. You probably have a line from London to India for immigration. And I think, look, there's got to be supply as well at the end of the day. And I think, when we're trying to extend seasons, get people into the regions, just to make sure that you don't have the over tourism, as we call it, in a particular city or, in any country for that matter. I think you'd have those challenges, then we would have to start discussing rather than how do we get people in or more people in.
How do we keep people out? I think it's a pie in the sky question at the moment, and it tends also to revolve around reciprocity. And I don't think India is at the moment is prepared to let everyone in without a visa either. So it's more of a fantasy question, really. It is worth noting, as Sheetal pointed out, that Serbia, who does not require a visa prior to arrival from either China or India, has seen explosive growth for a fairly marginal. Serbia will forgive me for this, but it's not one of the alpha destinations in Europe, but it's seen the strongest growth. Anyway, look, we've got some other questions here, and some of them are quite simple. So we'll start with a really quick question. Do you see any impact on outbound business to Europe linked to the upcoming general election? Do people stay domestically if there's an election taking place? Vishal, do you have a perception on this?
Yes, I think it's a small percentage that would stay back for make sure that they're able to vote. But what that does is I don't think it really impacts my holiday that I would want to take in the summer. I know when I'm voting in Mumbai, I travel before or after to make sure I'm here on voting day.
Aparna, what's your perception on staying? I ought to mention that where this perhaps comes from is the long-term folklore in the UK, well, in Europe, that Americans don't travel in election year. I'll explain whether that's a valid perception or not, but I'm interested to know what your take on India is on the basis of this question.
See, the election thing definitely has had an impact on the group travel, because they look at people from all over the country getting onto one group. So forming groups is becoming tricky, because in one region or the other, there are elections, because our elections are going to be spread over 6 weeks. So that is getting, but somebody like us doesn't get affected. We have a bus going every week, join whichever one suits you. The other business that's getting affected is the government officials. That is a big chunk of leisure travel. And the teachers or the people in the polling duties don't get leave for that entire 3 months. So this essentially, the summer period, is that amount of business is definitely lost.
That's very interesting. Sheetal, what's your perception on this?
So as correctly said by Aparna, it's really affecting the group travel for sure, because we generally do a lot of miles, and the companies are not ready to send their people because it's a pan-India movement. So I think most of the companies are organizing or planning for a tour or their travel dates after 8th of June, because I think till 7th of June, most of the elections from all over the India will be over. So it will be, they are planning the dates after 8th of June as of now.
Thank you. Now, I've got a question saying, and it's been partly answered, but it's a very specific question, so we can give it a slightly different twist. What kind of experiences do Indian travelers tend to do during a city break? Are they sensitive to price, or are they willing to spend more for a luxury experience? I think, for once, I'll start with Vishal, if I may. Vishal, have you got a take on this?
Yeah, I think you've got a market for both. There is the value for money, price sensitive market, and you've got the market in India that is willing to spend to have exclusive tours. So, if they walked into a particular attraction and they said, I want this exclusively for me for the 1 hour, they're happy to pay for it as long as they see the value again. So I think you've got market for both of them. When it comes to a lot of travel with the FIT market, I think it's family attractions, experiences that people look at. So bear in mind, it's very family centric at the end of the day, and if their kids are learning something out of that experience, even better.
Sheetal.
I would say, let's say 20% market is luxury when I'm talking about my perspective, because the company is spending for it, but 80% is really price sensitive. There is a lot of competition, and it's like especially places like North and Eastern India, where they are talking about mainly prices. So I think it's a very, very, very difficult to crack with the prices. But 20% market is there, which is luxury, but they also make sure that they get their value for money. So 2 years back, we did 350 people in a helicopter ride. They spend that kind of money. This year in January, we had a group for London where they stayed in Intercontinental Park Lane and, took a 30 minutes ride over the helicopter over the London. So as I said, that 80% is price sensitive, extremely, competitive. 20% is competitive, but they're ready to pay on the luxury side. Yeah.
And it's very interesting. Europe has a really high bar if you're trying to pitch price-sensitive luxury travel to Indian clients, because they're very used to extremely high levels of service at a very competitive rate in India. This is one of the things you specialize in, and it's difficult for Europe. No, not difficult for Europe to compete. Very difficult for Europe to match the level of quality and price ratios that you're used to in India. And I've watched Indian consumers react not favorably, for instance, to the experience of the Orient Express, which is regarded as the ne plus ultra of European travel. But Aparna, do you think there is this issue that we've got a price quality, not issue, but there's a new discipline for the market?
No, post-COVID, there is a new thought process that has emerged that we must do it all. Do you know how many people traveled to Antarctica out of India this last season?
That
Over
is a question.
400 people.
Right, okay, wow.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is this year for the Arctic, Svalbard, which was unheard of in the Indian market maybe even 5 years ago, maybe a handful of people went. Now there are at least 10 tour operators who are offering, and it's not cheap to be on a Svalbard cruise or a Greenland or a polar expedition, but there is a good demand for that out there. So that experiential travel is not necessarily the budget traveler out of India anymore.
Thank you. Now, we've got another question very close to my heart. Aparna, I'll ask you to start off with, which is, how are the Paris Olympics impacting demand to Europe, and are people avoiding Europe as a whole during the Olympics?
No, I don't think that's really sunk in India as yet, because there isn't much marketing for Olympics happening on the social media. So, I mean, when we really go to book hotels, you find June, July is tough. But people are aware, stay away from Paris. So minus Paris, people are still doing other areas of France. We suddenly find demand for people doing south of France, the other areas of France, because Paris, I think, done and dusted, a lot of people have traveled, and the other areas of France are doing well.
Thank you. Sheetal, are you seeing any impact from the Paris Olympics?
Yes, we are considering the fact that it's a lot of construction work going on in Paris. right now due to the Olympic arrangements. And I think Eiffel Tower is going to be not accepting the individual groups without advance booking from first week of June, because they want to change some things for the Olympic at Eiffel. So because of this, I think even generally the people are not preferring to going to Paris. So minus Paris, they are planning to do either Brussels, Amsterdam, or Switzerland is really getting popular because of that. So a lot of groups to Switzerland and Italy, and UK is also benefiting out of it. So I think from June, July till August mid, we are not having much inquiries or business for Paris. But till May, we have close to 1,000 people in different batches coming to Paris and exploring Paris before the Olympic starts.
Vishal, do you see people going to the UK rather than France, or is this not
Well,
discussed?
that's what I'm suggesting. But I think, no, like Aparna said, I don't think it's, the population as a whole really understands that Paris Olympics is happening, and it's kind of a few weeks, if I could call it that now. I mean, very few months away. I think I was talking to certain trade partners we were working with, and when I was on my travels just now in the last couple of weeks, and someone came up to me to say, I'm trying to do a group for the Paris Olympics and I'm not getting hotels, so it's become really tough. I said, great, if they want to go for the Paris Olympics, get them to stay in the UK, take the train across. So I think there is an opportunity here for the surrounding places in and around Paris. I mean, around France as well, because you've got great train connectivity. I think there will be availability of rooms. And I think people need to be a little more innovative in saying, do you want to be spending 1,000 euros a night in Paris, or are you happy to spend 300 somewhere else and, take the train up and down to go watch the games you want to watch while enjoying the rest of the tour? So I think there's that opportunity that we do see. Uh, since it's come onto my radar now in terms of people are looking at that, I will
I think
probably start talking a lot more about it in India now.
I think in slight contradiction to what you said, I think you will find that Paris has got the most hotel rooms of any city in Europe, and it's got over 85,000 registered hotel rooms, and Athens, which had about 25,000 hotel rooms, possibly boosted by another 5,000 during the Athens Olympics. Athens did not burst. And so we may have quite a few rooms. We may have quite a few rooms coming online at the last minute. There is, I think there's going to be opportunities there, is what I would say, for last minute travel. This leads me on to the final question I've got, or nearly the final question. Before I actually do that final question, there's a specific destination specific question, and it's, if I can have a one sentence answer from you. Is there, how much interest is there in Northern Ireland? Before I go to Vishal, I will ask Sheetal very quickly. A lot, a little, some, what?
Ireland is still not that familiar with Indians, Yes, due to the Game of Thrones and, lot of movies, again, Bollywood movies, the people are, wants to go, but it's not yet that, interesting for Indian clients. But yes, there are some groups which have been specific about Ireland, but volume-wise, it's not too much.
Aparna?
For me, it's all included. So I have Northern Ireland, be it Londonderry, Belfast, Giant's Causeway is all on the list and it's included. And I think it goes quite well as a package here.
Yeah. Vishal?
Yeah, I think there's a growing interest. Like Aparna said, it's on the tour. People come back, speak about it to friends and family, and word of mouth plays its role. I think given the fact that you've got the British Irish visa scheme, plays its part in terms of getting people across both sides. And I think people are starting to take advantage of that. I think there are a lot of agents who are offering it proactively to their clients as well. Whether the client takes it or no, again, like Shito said, it's not a huge volume at the moment, but it's growing.
I think I'm very conscious that we're now out of time. I would just, if I may say one thing, destinations always learn from the clients they serve. Europe learned many, many years ago from the Americans and the importance of including ensuite facilities in their hotel rooms, which was not by no means a standard prior to the 1960s. We learned a lot from the Japanese, not least the necessity of placing customers absolutely front and center of the experience. Europe learns a lot from the Chinese groups, and it's still working out what it learned, but it's got a lot of lessons there, not least of which the ability of the Chinese to open up price levels unseen in Europe before. From the Indian market, I have no idea what we will learn, but we will surely learn something. And one of them, I'm certain, is that the pattern that the travel industry has had over the last 40 years of planning up to 24 months in advance for groups, particularly Asian groups, will have to change because the Indian market seems to specialize in last-minute bookings, and we have a lot of last-minute availability in Europe, and how we can tie those together will be one of the interesting challenges for the industry. There is so much more to discuss here. I'm acutely aware that we've been generalizing about not a country, but a continent with a vast and disparate population. And so everything that we've said, I dare say, has to be taken with qualification. But I'm deeply grateful to Vishal, to Sheetal, and to Aparna for sparing the time to help discuss this topic, which I know we will be discussing in depth and in greater detail in future. So thank you, panelists. Thank you, audience. This will be available later on. And thank you very much. I hope you have a great rest of the day, afternoon in India, and I hope you have a good day in Europe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
Sheetal. Bye,
Tom.
Aparna.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Vishal. See you,
Thank you.
Sheetal. Bye-bye.
Bye.